Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz is a member of the Freedom Caucus, and he joins me now. Congressman, thank you very much for being here.
Oh, good to be with you, Katie.
Is the GOP a cult?
The GOP is not a cult. We're a party built on principles that right now are increasing economic opportunity for millions of Americans. Over 3 million Americans have gotten bonuses or raises. We've got millions of jobs being created in the private sector economy. So we're a party built on ideas and principles, and feels like we're winning.
Do you think that lawmakers in your party who don't agree with the president are able to speak out and disagree with him without getting the wrath of the president, without getting the wrath of the voters?
Well, this is politics. Nobody pitches underhand. And if people oppose the agenda of any politician, they're likely to receive some response from that person. That's how things work in a democracy.
Let me ask you about not responding to the agenda. I mean, Mark Sanford voted in line with the president 73% of the time. He voted for all of the big bills, supported the House health care bill. He supported the tax bill. He's got an A rating from the NRA. He's in line with the agenda.
Yeah, I am a big Mark Sanford fan. I serve with him on the Budget Committee.
So why is the president saying that he's not helping with MAGA?
I believe that the president and Mark Sanford have very different personalities, and that personality clash lended to a working relationship that was not as productive as either likely would have hoped.
Well, doesn't that make it sound like what Bob Corker is saying, that if you don't praise the president, if you speak your mind, then you are going to be punished for it? Isn't that a bit cultish sounding?
Well, that's not been my experience. If you'll recall, I was one of the lawmakers along with Mark Sanford who said that the president should release his tax returns. That's an issue where I disagree with the president. I agree with him on other things. I think the Russia investigation is a witch hunt. I think that he's right on the economy, on national security and foreign policy. But, you know, you can disagree with this president on a matter or two and not bear his wrath. I think that there was, in this particular case with Mr. Sanford, my dear friend, just a personality clash that wasn't very productive between the two men.
So the president is for levying tariffs. The Republican Party has not traditionally been for levying tariffs. They've been for free trade. The Republican Party has traditionally been for lowering the national debt. The tax bill raised the national debt. The Republican Party has not traditionally been in favor of propping up companies with government subsidies. That's what the president is proposing to do, or at least government help with the coal industry. The Republican Party has not been in favor of talking to dictators before, but the president went and he met with Kim Jong-un. The Republican Party has been antagonistic to Russia. The president is not antagonistic to Russia. Is this the Republican Party, or is it the Donald Trump Party?
I think that your question unfairly poses those as binary issues. Republicans aren't exclusively for open borders in every circumstance on trade. We want fair trade, and that's been a part of message from Republicans for a generation. I mean, Nixon went to China and met with people who did not precisely hold our values or our interests, and so it's not aberrational that this president would, a time or two, deviate from traditional Republican doctrine.
It's not a time or two, sir.
Katie, this is what he ran on.
I mean, a lot of the stuff that he is in favor of, the Republican Party is not in favor of. I mean, just look at Russia. He is very friendly to Russia.
Look, he's been very tough on Russia.
If you look at standing on the floor the other day saying that just appalled that the Republican Party cannot push back on tariffs with a bill because they're afraid of upsetting the president.
I think that Senator Corker is a little upset that he got passed over for Secretary of State, and that may have something to do.
You think it's a personal issue for Bob Corker?
I do, and I also think that it's incorrect to suggest that on all those issues there aren't Republicans who hold a variety of views. We're a big tent, and we cannot act as though this is some sort of surprise. Donald Trump, during his campaign for president, just ran through 16 other candidates like a hot knife through butter, talking about the need to reorient our trade deals and our trade agreements. One of the underlying principles of the campaign was that we had negotiated poorly on trade on the global stage, and that he was going to be a tougher negotiator. And so we're seeing the art of the deal play out in real time, and I'm incredibly proud of this president on those issues.
Donald Trump didn't write the art of the deal. We should say that. Talking about Corey Stewart, what do you think of him getting the nomination in Virginia?
I don't believe there are any serious Republicans on Capitol Hill who believed that Virginia was in play. I don't think Tim Kaine's ever lost an election. I don't expect that to change. I think we're going to focus our efforts in Florida, in Ohio, in North Dakota, where we've got better opportunities for pickups than Virginia.
Why do you think the Republican voters in that state chose Corey Stewart? He's a man that's defended Confederate monuments. He's once called a self-professed pro-white candidate for Congress, his personal hero, even though he distanced himself from that. He's been talking about birtherism again. Why would Republican voters choose him?
I don't know. I'm not one of them in Virginia. I'm a Republican voter in Florida. We're incredibly proud of our Republican candidate, Rick Scott, who's going to beat Bill Nelson in the general election.
If Republicans lose the House in November, who is to blame? Is it the president?
No, I think if we lose the House in November, it'll be a consequence of not running good campaigns. I think that, you mentioned Virginia. The real story in Virginia is in some of the House races where you had really strong turnout in the Republican primary compared to diminished turnout on the Democratic side when you look at where expectations were. I don't think there's going to be a blue wave in Virginia, and I think the Republicans running there like Barbara Comstock and Scott Taylor will be essential to preserving our majority.
Is there a place for moderates in the Republican Party? You've had 26 Republicans retire, 23 in the House, 3 in the Senate.
Yeah, the Republicans are doing pretty well this week on the moderates are. I mean, you got folks like Carlos Curvelo and Jeff Denham who are, you know, whether you agree with them or disagree with them, they're forging ahead with a moderate immigration plan. I'm a supporter of the good conservative immigration plan.
They're having a hard time getting that to the floor. They're trying to bypass Senate leadership or House leadership to get that to the floor. I mean, they're not having an easy time at all. They can't even get a debate on it without having to go around Republican leadership.
Well, we should have a debate on immigration. It's one of the reasons why I've supported procedural matters that would allow us to bring all these issues to the floor so that we can have a robust debate, and I hope that the rule of law will prevail. But it is disappointing that here in the 115th Congress, we have not had major debate on substantive issues regarding immigration reform on the floor, and I think that the moderates in our caucus have been successful at ripening that issue. And I don't think that next week will come to an end without us having those debates and taking those votes on the floor. It shows that the moderate voices in our party still swing a pretty big stick when it comes to guiding the direction of the caucus.
Talking about immigration, do you support separating families at the border?
I support the rule of law, and I don't think that we ought to have magnets that draw people across our borders illegally. I fear that some of the entitlements we give illegal aliens, in fact, do that. I don't think it's humanitarian to give people the expectation that if they send unaccompanied minors or if they bring young children across the border, that is somehow a better circumstance. I think that we've got to be tough on the border. We've got to stop the crime that is crossing over the border, and where there's an opportunity to be compassionate, we should be. But a lot of people on the planet Earth have compassionate stories. The American taxpayers can't take care of all of them.
To be clear, it's not a law. It's a policy of the Trump administration to separate families that are coming across the border. A lot of these families are seeking asylum, and so far this deterrent that this administration has said that is the purpose of this, to be a deterrent, has not worked. There's been an increase in border crossings.
When I say rule of law, I don't mean this particular policy. I mean a country that preserves its borders for the sake of its own dignity and protection and for its own agency and sovereignty. The U.S.-Mexico border is porous, and I think that undermines the rule of law in this country. I think it hurts public safety, and it puts us in a bad fiscal position when we're spending over, $200 million a year on entitlements for illegal aliens.
So yes, separating families is something you do support.
I think that we've got to support the rule of law, and I think that in some circumstances...
But I'm asking you, do you support separating families?
Look, no one loves the idea of a family being separated, but you cannot have policies that invite people across our borders illegally. That is the greater harm, in my view.
Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz of Florida. Matt, thank you so much.
Thank you, Katy.
Congressman, thank you so much.